So good morning, everybody. We are in the 18th class of our advanced course in drones for development. And today we have a very special guest, which is Nada Sukkarieh from Australia. We met in New York in one of the conferences, and since then we've been in touch. And I was really amazed by the work that they have been doing in agriculture. And so we kind of connected with a common goal that why not revolutionize agriculture, especially for the smallholder farmers. And so that's how we started talking about it. And yes, today I have Nada who will present her entire work to you, especially the one which they have done in the developing countries or the remote locations where they've been very active. So Nada, it's over to you.
Thank you, Ruchi, for the opportunity to present this seminar. As Ruchi mentioned, I will be talking to you today about a case study in farm robotics that we undertook in the Pacific Island countries of Fiji and Samoa in 2018. I work for a company called Aggeris, which is a field robotics startup based on technology developed at the Australian Centre for Field Robotics within the University of Sydney. At the Australian Centre for Field Robotics, air and ground robotic solutions for the agriculture industry have been in development since 2005. Next. This first slide gives you a quick snapshot of the type of work the team has been doing. So we started with drones, and in fact we used to build our own drones and autopilot systems in the lab before we could buy them off the shelf. At that stage, we received funding from different government and agricultural organisations in Australia to test out our drones over large landscapes. We also developed machine learning techniques to detect invasive species such as weeds. This led to further funding to develop ground robotic platforms that could work on farms to identify and physically remove the weeds. So during this process, we also found that the same technology could be used to do things like crop intelligence and animal welfare analysis. So in the middle section are examples of the work that we did in this space, mainly in horticulture. This has been extended into grains and grazing livestock as well. And the smallholder section represents the body of work that we started about 5 years ago, to look at how the technology that we had developed for the horticulture industry could be used to support smallholder farmers, giving them many challenges they face. The vision here was to build a low-cost ground platform that could do what drones do, but also assist with the physical tasks that farmers face every day. We started by developing a simple two-wheel robotic platform called the die wheel, which in itself is a classic example of a drone on wheels. There have since been 6 models before we arrived at what is now called the digital farmhand. Next slide. Here we have a photo of the digital farmhand in its current form. Basically, it is a small electric tractor-like vehicle that can tow different implements such as seeders, weeding tools, and crop row preparation tools. It also uses low-cost computing and smartphone technologies, along with inbuilt artificial intelligence to provide crop analytics such as yield estimation and pest and disease identification. It is designed for low-cost operations and repairs. It can be transported in the back of a utility. It can be modified to work in different configurations and operate across different sized crop rows. The rechargeable batteries are in the red boxes on the sides. We can also get up to 15 hours of continuous operations with the solar electric version, like in the photo. It can carry up to 200 kilograms of chemicals or harvested crops, as well as travel over different types of terrain and soil types. We can also remove the GPS at the front, and the digital farmhand will follow crop rows autonomously with the aid of cameras and sensors. Next slide. In 2017, the Australian Centre for Field Robotics received funding from the Australian Government Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade Innovation Exchange to undertake a pilot project to explore how the digital farmhand could assist smallholder farmers in Fiji and Samoa in improving their agricultural productivity and in turn their food and nutrition security. This project was part of the Launch Food Grants program. The digital farmhand had previously been trialled among smallholder farmers in Australia and Indonesia to an overwhelmingly positive response. As part of the Launch Food Grants program, the goal was to establish the foundations for a successful introduction of the digital farmhand into the Pacific Islands due to the need to improve food security. Identifying the right partners, locations, and crops that would enable on-farm trials of the digital farmhand was an important part of the process. Next slide. So what exactly did we do? Well, one of the first things we did was make contact with Fijian and Samoan farm organisations to introduce ourselves and seek assistance in country to conduct on-farm trials and workshops with members of their respective agricultural communities. This request for assistance was well received, and subsequently 3 on-farm trials and 1 workshop was held in each country in June and August of 2018. At the field trials, our team outlined the project's objectives to the growers and demonstrated digital farmhands functionalities. These included using the spraying, seeding and weeding implements on the available crop rows, as well as collecting data on commonly grown crops such as tomato, eggplant and cabbage using digital farmhands camera. In some cases, data was collected manually using handheld sensors as the digital farmhand could not navigate short crop rows or inadequate headland as at the end of rows, which made it difficult to turn. Growers were extremely positive about the possibilities of using the platform on their farms and spoke to the team about their farm operations, sale of their produce and the challenges they face. Demonstrations of the digital farmhand on crop rows was found to be the most effective method in explaining how the platform works, as well as the most appropriate time to gather feedback. Different business models and subsets of digital farmhand that may be of interest to farmers were also explored. So, for example, smart spraying systems that are manually carried or handheld sensing systems for data collection. This is especially important in Samoa, where flexible tools are needed to accommodate the wider variety in farm layouts and the typically small size of farms. Next slide. The workshops were also an important element in communicating the purpose of the project. Surveys confirmed that everyone that attended had a better understanding of the potential uses of robotics on farms after the workshops were held. The workshops were also an opportunity to demonstrate digital farmhand to the wider agricultural community and collect constructive feedback regarding possible improvements and applications. Workshop attendees included growers, extension officers, and local agricultural business representatives. And the breakdown of attendees between countries was in Fiji, 9 men and 7 women, and Samoa, 8 men and 13 women. At the workshops, discussions focused on challenges for growers and how subsets of the digital farmhand could be used to address these. There was also a lot of discussion about how the feminisation of agriculture is also calling for a greater use of technology to support on-farm physical tasks. So given the modularity of the digital farmhand, there was a lot of positive feedback, especially from the female attendees at the workshops. Next slide, please. During the project, our team encountered a number of challenges that farmers in these communities face that would strongly support the introduction and use of the digital farmhand. These included low farm labour productivity, lack of technical skills, lack of affordable inputs, the damaging impact of weeds, pests and crop disease, which continue to hamper access to quality food for the vast majority of the population. Lending products are often inappropriate for agriculture, and interest rates are high and prohibitive, which in turn constrain on-farm investment. And also the high vulnerability of the community to natural disasters such as cyclones, droughts, and rising sea level. Next slide. On the other side, our team also encountered challenges, and these included our analysis was reliant on farmer approximations. So our financial analysis was reliant on farmer approximations, as published gross margin budgets were found to be unrealistic. So financial information was communicated to us through email, verbal discussions, and in survey responses. Another challenge that we found was gaining an understanding of how to build a support network around the farmers that would include maintenance of the platform, education, and appropriate ICT systems for operation, as well as access to affordable lending products so that they can access the technology. Logistics of transporting the digital farmhand whole or in parts also proved to be an expensive and administrative constraint given the customs paperwork and fees in both countries. And also there was a lack of readily available spare parts in case of troubleshooting. Overall, however, the pilot project was successful in that it achieved its goal of establishing the foundations of an introduction of the digital farmhand. Next slide. Of an introduction to the Pacific Islands through identifying the right local partners to work with, and also gaining an understanding of the following areas. So for education and ICT systems, the project allowed us to develop a comprehensive training program that would provide for a sustainable use of the digital farmhand. We have put together a training program that would be implemented through a local organisation and allow different levels of training. Workshop surveys showed that continuous support to use the technology and maintain the robotic platform was required, which supported the establishment of a local organisation which can provide hands-on training and support. The range of potential applications of the digital farmhand and varying farm conditions in different locations requires the training program to be modular so that it can be made relevant to individuals with different needs and skill sets. So that it can be, the training program is actually designed so that individuals with little or no understanding of mechanics, electronics, or even software are able to gain the skills necessary for operating the digital farmhand. Also, the key finding from the field trials and workshops was that using subsets of the digital farmhand would be most beneficial to the majority of smallholder farmers in Fiji and Samoa. For example, farm workers will often apply chemicals inconsistently, and a smart sprayer concept was discussed at the workshop. Farm maps collected with a mobile phone can be used to identify the areas of a paddock that need water, fertilizer, herbicide, or pesticide based on a GPS location. A sprayer carried by a farm worker could be programmed to turn on and off based on information from the farm map. This would increase the effectiveness and precision of the chemicals applied, which would in turn reduce the amount of chemicals that are being used unnecessarily. This reduction in chemicals is both an environmental and economic benefit to the farmers. And finally, from the perspective of economic sustainability, a number of different business model options for introducing the digital farmhand to Fiji and Samoa were formulated. The most likely model to be implemented would be a service model, as it is viewed as the most sustainable. As part of the service model, a commercial entity would be set up in country, and a consultant would be employed to work with local farmers by offering the services of the digital farmhand. The in-country entity would be set up similar to a social enterprise that would train locals in the operation and effective use of the platform. This way, the local entity can demonstrate that it is a committed partner in the short term and could eventually evolve to be a sales or distribution point in the longer term. A service model initially provides the opportunity to change the mindset of farmers towards the use of technology, as well as give the cost of technology an opportunity to fall to potentially more affordable levels. The aim is to work directly with the keenest growers and partners initially. These are the people who will eventually encourage others to get involved, and will then help shape the agenda in their respective communities regarding the use of on-farm technology going forward. So next slide. So going forward, discussions with growers during on-farm trials and workshops revealed an openness to new technology as long as it translates to increased crop sales. The digital farmhand, for example, is of interest if it can seed, weed, and precision spray, potentially increasing crop yield, reducing crop variability and crop mortality. For the majority of farmers, a service offering, as I just mentioned, would provide the opportunity for growers to access the technology through local consultants. The service model also allows demonstration of the technology benefits to the wider agricultural community, and there is also the opportunity for establishing micro work activities that would benefit the community as a whole. So assessing the economic viability of digital farmhand is a key next step towards making the technology available to farmers in countries like Fiji and Samoa and other developing countries. Next slide, please. So I thank you for your time, and once again, thank you for the opportunity to talk to you about farm robotics and our project that we did in Fiji and Samoa. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nada.
No problem.
So I would request the class to please put up your questions so that we can ask Nada. And meanwhile, Nada, I have a couple of questions for you.
Sure. Sorry, I'm just trying to put my video back on.
Yeah, please.
Yes, okay. I am, for some reason. Okay, hold on. Oh, I figured it out, finally. Yes. You're so cruel. You should be using Zoom.
Yeah, probably. It's the loyalty that you have towards Google that you just don't want to let go.
Okay, so you can see me now?
Yes,
okay,
I
good.
can see you. Great. So,
All
Nada,
right.
what the micro works include?
So the micro work?
Yeah.
Okay, so what we found was if we set up a social enterprise in for example, Samoa and Fiji, we actually found that some of the laborers that were the farm laborers there would be interested in becoming the consultants, and with little or no technical knowledge, and so we would through that they would have the opportunity for employment, but at the same time, there would be an opportunity for any data that was collected from the farms to be processed and analyzed in the communities, so that you would have very localized knowledge of the crops and the soil, and that could be taught to school kids, like high school children, people with very little technical or electronic software knowledge. These are things that could be taught, and they're just as we said, micro work activities.
Okay. This kind of becomes a social entrepreneurship model wherein your business grows when somebody else's business grows.
That's right.
Right?
That's right. We could deal with a local partner who could be our contact there, who can then employ other people to do various things. And like I said, through collecting data in certain areas of a country or community, they develop very localized knowledge of the crops and the soil and the chemicals being used. And from that, improvements can be made.
So the data that you require are about the soil, crop. What all data do you need from the local reps?
So the kind of data that we collect would be like crop health, so nutrient deficiencies, the sort of pests and diseases that are plaguing the crop. This leads more into like a digital agronomy kind of service. And like I said, it becomes very localized because the pests and diseases that could be plaguing the crops in one part of Samoa aren't necessarily plaguing the crops in another part of Samoa. The cameras and the sensors can detect different soil deficiencies.
Do you have like agro scientists in your backend who diagnose these diseases for the plants?
So at the moment, at the moment we have a team of engineers that is working on actually on getting the platform to be able to pick up all of this data. And I think the next stage for us is to employ an agronomist or agricultural scientist to be able to analyze that data. But we have collected a lot of data that is just waiting to be analyzed. So it will form part of the next part of our journey in our new commercial entity.
Right. And so your digital farmhand, as well as the drones, as well as all the other things that you do, also help you to build up this database.
Yes, so the digital farmhand is essentially, like I said, like a drone on wheels. Yeah. So if the cameras and the sensor suite that are on digital farmhand allow it to collect all of this data. So we're not actually using any drones at the moment, like flying drones. So that's digital farmhand. And then we have another agricultural robot called Swagbot, which is more so for harder terrain. So long endurance, sort of big areas like in Australia where we've got thousands and thousands of acres of pastoral land where, animals are always grazing. So it's a much more long endurance, sort of rough terrain robot.
It's still a rover. It's still a rover. You don't use drones even in pastures.
Yeah, no.
Why?
No, because the computers that are on the robots talk directly to, base, if you like, and back to the laptops. And so they don't actually, and drones, ground robots or ground drones, if you like, can carry, higher payloads than drones. What else can I tell you? Why don't we use drones? I suppose our company is not based on the use of flying drones. It was essentially set up to help farmers with not only things that drones can do, but also the physical tasks that they're finding challenging, and the things that they are finding. One of the biggest things that they are finding challenging is labor that will even do the most boring of tasks, such as weeding, for example.
Right. So, for example, the drones that are used are more focused on monitoring, scouting, and diagnosing diseases. Your rover can do a lot more.
Yes. So yours, I don't know how long your battery is for, or how long your endurance is for, but our robots, which are on the ground, can with their rechargeable batteries, they can, if you set up their charging stations, throughout the properties, for example, they can be going for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And I remember what you presented in New York. It was also about weeding, right? You can detect weeds and pluck them out, something like that.
Yes. So I don't know if you have access to the Aggeris page on LinkedIn. We've put up a weeding video in the last few days that shows how we precision weed. So we're not actually cultivating the land like a lot of other robots do. We're trying to use no chemicals and minimal soil disturbance, which is very important for many farmers here in Australia.
Right.
So we actually go in and with very precise implements, we precision weed, so with surgical precision, really. So the cameras and the sensors underneath the digital farmhand are actually picking up on the weeds that are on the ground, and if they are of a certain size and they are not within the immediate radius, so that the farmer gets to set the digital zone around the crop. So anything within, say, so farmers have told us that anything within like a 10 centimetre radius around the crop we shouldn't touch, because that will actually damage the root growth of the crop. So anything outside of that, dig it out. So basically, if you just slightly disturb the soil, it's enough to kill the weed. So we have implements on our digital farmhand that, and with the aid of the cameras and the sensors, that travel over the crops, and they pick up on any weeds that are outside of this digital zone around the crop plant, and just go in and just slightly scuffle it or just move it in the soil, and that's enough to kill it. And that way we have minimal soil disturbance, and we have no and we don't use any chemicals.
Interesting. So your precision that you talk about, it could be, the finest precision could be like how many millimeters, centimeters?
Yes. So in Australia, so far, the vegetable growers that we have dealt with have on average said that anything sort of within a 10 centimetre radius around the crop, we don't want you to touch. That's too close to the crop. So, if anything really big is growing, within that radius around the crop, the farmer will pick it out. Otherwise, our bots can actually just, clean up all the land all around it.
Are you also into harvesting the crop?
Well, we will get there. It's not far away. We will get there.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's definitely in the R&D pipeline. Yes. So we're actually harvesting. Yeah.
So once we had a discussion, for example, if we have to bring digital farmhand to India, and because we have a manufacturing base here, so
Okay, I'm happy to bring it to you.
Yeah, so the idea could be, for example, when you said that you don't get spare parts in many places that you work, so maybe if that is facilitated for you, would you think India could be a potential market for you, or other countries can become a potential market for you that way?
Yes, so apart from the weeding implements that surgically, move the weed, we also have a precision sprayer which identifies the weed, and according to the herbicide or the pesticide or even the fertilizer that the farmer wishes to apply, it has a precision nozzle, and it just follows that weed with its cameras and its sensors, and it just does like a couple of drops, and that's enough. So that way it actually minimizes chemical use as well.
Okay, and how easy it is for the farmers to use your robots? Like, do they navigate themselves, or do we have service providers to do that?
Absolutely. We have designed it so that anybody could use it, even a child could use it. So basically, it would be operated either off a smartphone app or a tablet app. It will come with its own tablet, and it is just a very simple user interface. Like it's almost like it's second nature.
And is it autonomous, or you have to control it remotely? You have to pilot it, or it's autonomous?
Okay, so there is two versions. Obviously, the one that is remote controlled is the cheaper version, which and I don't even have prices for you because we haven't actually got to the point of selling anything yet, but we have a lot of demand. We're getting there. We have a remote control version and we have an autonomous version. So the autonomous version works off it has two things. So one is it works off a GPS. So if your land has been GPS mapped, it will work off that. And if it hasn't, it will work off no GPSs at all. What it will do, it will autonomously follow the crop rows, because what we have found is that, many farmers don't necessarily have perfectly straight rows, as we also found in developing countries. And so that particular functionality is very important, because then the digital farmhand can actually just follow the row as opposed to following a dead straight line. And then we have the remote control version, which is a much more basic version.
Okay, interesting. So there are a couple of more questions from the classmates here.
Sure.
So somebody had asked about the rover is based on localized track paths navigation or through GPS navigation, which you already explained.
Okay.
Do you have to tie up with fertilizer and pesticide companies regarding the appropriate quantity of chemicals?
Sorry, can you repeat that one again?
Do you have any kind of partnership with fertilizer and pesticide companies?
Did you have to tie up with fertilizer and pesticide companies regarding the appropriate? Okay, so at the moment we haven't actually sort of an agreement with any company. So we have had chemical companies approach us to partner with us. What we can do at the moment is sell the robot to farmers, or provide the robot to farmers, and if they have a chemical license, then they can use it with their own chemicals. They can do that. So at the moment, we can't actually apply any fertilizer or pesticide because we don't have a chemical license. This may be something down the track where we will potentially partner with a chemical company. We have had companies who have approached us wanting to purchase the bots so that they can put it with their own chemicals and they can on-sell it. It's early days for us. We haven't actually got to that point yet, but we have been approached.
And there is a similar question there about organic farming.
Yes. So any case of applying to, yes, absolutely. It definitely lends very well to organic farming because there is no use of chemicals. And if you want to use chemicals, I don't know what it's like in India, but in Australia there are organic herbicides that farmers can apply. And, because, as I said, the company, Aggeris, at the moment doesn't have a chemical license, so we could sell the robot to these organic farmers and they can apply their own organic herbicides. But it is definitely a technological platform that lends itself very well to organic farming. Okay, definitely.
Yes. So Amit is asking about the soil types. Have you tested your solution in various soil types?
Soil types like red soil, black soil, different niche. At the moment, we haven't gone down that path of testing soil types. We can put a soil test probe. We can attach that to the bot, and that can do soil tests. But from a company perspective, at the moment, what we're doing is just building the platform. And further down the track, when we have our own in-house agronomist, we'll be able to provide more of an added value service when it comes to things like soil testing. But at the moment, I can tell you we can add a soil test probe onto it. But any more detail than that, I'm sorry, I can't give you.
Somebody's asking about a solar-powered rover. What is the difference between that and yours?
Okay, I saw a solar-powered rover. Could you give me more information regarding what sort of tasks it can perform? Was it our solar-powered one? Is that the photo that they would have seen on LinkedIn? Potentially. Anyway, the solar-powered, so we can have it with or without the solar panels. So with the solar panels, we can get on a beautiful sunny summer day, we can get almost 18 hours a day operation without recharging. On an ordinary day here in Australia, we can get up to 15 hours of continuous operation. So in addition to the solar panels that sit on top of the robot, we have 2 rechargeable batteries in each of the pods on either side of the robot. So those red boxes on the side. And they, without the solar panels, I think we can get about 11 hours continuous operation from those rechargeable batteries before we have to charge them again.
Okay. And so Palak is asking about the height.
Okay.
I think you have a modifiable height or something, or is there a minimum or maximum height available?
Yes, so we can modify the width. So it can work across different crop row beds. So some crop rows are 1.5 meters wide. Some are 2 meters. The majority are 1.8 meters. They tend to be prepared according to the type of tractor that the farmer is using. So the majority of tractors here in Australia have a 1.8 meter width, and so the rows are 1.8 meters. But a lot of people, want a smaller width, so they do 1.5. So we've designed the digital farmhand so that it can be widened and shortened from a width perspective. So in terms of height, it has been designed, I think it's about 75 centimeters. But we have a tree crop version, which also which has an adjustable height so that it can reach further up into the trees. So that's a different version that will be coming out, maybe early next year. But in terms of height, I believe it's fixed. I think it's about 75 or 80 centimeters high.
And what about the lower height? How low can it be?
Yeah. So that's the height. So it pretty much goes all the way up to that height.
Okay. So minimum could be very short, and then maximum could be 75.
Yeah, I think it's about 75 or 80 centimeters. At the moment, the digital farmhand has really been designed for crops that are what they call head crops, so horticulture crops. So things like cabbage, broccoli, lettuce. They've used it on carrots. What else have they used it on? Spinach, kale, bok choy, that sort of height for now.
Right, so closer to the ground.
Yes. But also like a head crop, so one that has a very defined head.
Right.
Okay.
So has it got...
And has the Rover got Pest and precision? Yes, it does. So the cameras and sensors that are on it, so depending on how, the cameras and sensors that are put on the bot, they can pick up on different sorts of things. So they can pick up on the nutrient deficiency of the plant. They can pick up on the age of the plant and do like a histogram of, the growth of the plant. They can also pick up on different pests or diseases just from the colouring of the leaves or spots on the leaves or even just little bugs on the leaves. And they will take lots and lots and lots of photos, and that data will be processed. And so at the moment we can detect. We can't offer advice because we don't have an in-house agronomist as yet, but it will be part of the offering. That is part of like the user interface that you would get with the robot. It will tell you exactly the type of pest or disease that is in your localized area from all of the other data that has been collected in your area. And precision pest control definitely through our precision sprayer. So, the farmer would put whatever chemicals he wants or he or she wants into a big spray tank that can be put on top of the platform. and just program the bot to go up and down the rows and spray when it sees, a certain pest or a leaf that has been diseased.
Great. So somebody's asking about hydroponic farms.
It's at the moment we've focused on outdoor farms, so there isn't really a
market.
So there is a big market here in Australia and worldwide, hydroponic farms, but at the moment we've only focused on outdoor farms. So we don't know. It could be used inside, but we haven't really tried it.
And how supportive is the government or universities?
Sorry.
My voice is echoing for some reason.
Sorry, Ruchi, I couldn't hear you.
Hold on. Am I still echoing? I think I'm echoing.
Yes, madam, you have an echo.
Hold on. Now is it better? Yeah.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. So I'm asking how supportive is the government and the universities being for this project?
Okay, so Aggeris, as I said earlier, is a startup that was spun out of the University of Sydney. So the university is very supportive of getting this sort of technology out and commercialised. Excuse me. It is one of our major shareholders, so it is definitely very. The Australian government is also supportive in that if there is ever any opportunities to, to tell us about, subsidies or, things like that, grants, they do. We haven't actually approached the government for any money, but they definitely view this as a success story for Australian technology. And, we do look forward to being able to, take it to the world, really. And I assume that the Australian government will most likely help us to do that at some point.
Great. So I think this is the best session that I've seen talking about technologies and these. And plus, if anybody has any other question which is unanswered, then you can unmute yourself and ask.
Yeah.
Okay, so Amit is asking about the wet regions, moisture prone and
Okay, so does the Rover on hand can work in light rain? We haven't actually tried it in heavy rain, but it can work in light rain. It has very robust tires on its wheels. That it can move through quite sticky and wet soil. And it can, go through mud. It also has it will shortly have a 4-wheel drive component to it. So it will be able to get through, really deep mud if it has been, if the irrigation systems have been put on and the soil is really, really wet, we can get through that.
What about paddy, rice?
In terms of, in rice, no, not yet. We'd like that, but no, not yet. I think that is definitely in the R&D pipeline. I have had someone when I was in Washington ask me the same thing. I think they were thinking of a project that they have in Papua New Guinea and also in, I think, Cambodia, where this something like this would be fantastic. Going through rice paddock, the most I could say was, look, it's in the pipeline. We will get to it eventually. At the moment, we just have to conquer the world of horticulture.
Yeah, that's a good step. So.
Yeah, we have to start somewhere.
Start somewhere and do it well.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank
I think
you.
we'll come to the end of this session. It's been an amazing
Okay.
presentation.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity as well.
So thank you very much, everybody. And this has been an amazing morning. Thank you so much, Nada, for being a part of our course.
You're welcome. Thank you. And thank you for offering.
Thank you on behalf of everybody who's here from all the parts of the world who are here to
Okay.
learn.
And feel free to send through any other questions you may have.
Sure. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, everybody. We will not see you today evening. If you want me to see you today evening, maybe we can do some exercises together. But otherwise, we can take a break today evening. Goodbye.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye. Bye, Ruchi.
Bye. Bye, Nada.